Hello to my elephant baby family, and welcome back to another episode of the Eternal Postpartum Podcast. It has been a while since I have connected with you all, and I'm excited to just sit back and share my heart today after taking a moment to really reflect on the future and the vision and where we're going with Elephant Baby and the Eternal Postpartum Movement. This is going to be totally unscripted. This is going to be totally unedited, which those of you guys who listen to the podcast, you probably know that I am not too bothered by that because I've never spent a ton of time or energy trying to edit like a perfect podcast. It's just not my gift and not my zone of joy and genius. But I try to make it to where it's manageable for you guys to just listen and enjoy and just have a decent sound quality. But today, this is totally unscripted, and it's what time is it here? It's 8:31 a.m. here in Wentzville, Missouri, and my kids are still sleeping, and we had a late night last night. We were up playing games pretty late last night, and so it's pretty likely that one of my kids will be coming into my office at any moment during this recording. And guess what? I am not going to edit it out at all. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that. If you are listening in on the podcast, then you're going to hear it. And so I apologize in advance. But I was just sitting this morning, and I had taken some time to just really pray and to really reflect. Actually, before I get into this, maybe you guys are listening in for the very first time and you have no idea who I am. You have no idea. Well, you probably have sort of an idea what the podcast is about, just looking at the name. But I'm Kyla Lawson. I'm the owner and founder of Elephant Baby. We are an innovative postpartum care agency here in St. Louis, Missouri, that helps moms to feel supported, nurtured, and empowered throughout the infinite chapters of postpartum. And I am also the leader of our nonprofit, which is the Elephant Baby Foundation. And together, these two organizations are spearheading a radical movement. It's called the Eternal Postpartum Movement, in which we essentially are reflecting what we've been doing here at the agency with Elephant Baby for the last few years. This is what we're reflecting in the movement. And again, the goal is to support mothers and providers in reclaiming collectivism and wellness throughout the infinite chapters of postpartum according to biblical principles. So that's a little bit about me. If you want to get to know more, then just feel free to listen to any previous episodes of the podcast or go to my Facebook page, even though I am going to be off Facebook for a while. I might get into that. But I just wanted to take a few moments. I'm hoping this is not too long, and this video is going out to all of our email subscribers who have signed up to receive updates about what we're doing here at Elephant Baby as well, because I want to share my heart, because I was sitting and I was thinking and I was reflecting, and I am so passionate about what we are doing here at Elephant Baby. And over the weekend, I had the opportunity of going to a retreat, and surprisingly, unknowingly, I had the opportunity to share my story over and over and over again. And I feel like it just ignited a passion, and it initiated and prompted this apology that I want to give to you guys today. And the reason why I want to issue an apology is because I don't feel like that I have done a really good job of sharing and being authentic with where the Most High God is taking me and is taking whoever wants to, ride along with me in this journey. I think I've done a good job of reflecting the heart of what we're doing here. And the reason why I say that is because a couple of months ago, I made an announcement about the coming of the Well. And for those of you all who don't know, the Well is a postpartum and motherhood renewal retreat that we are working to bring here to our St. Louis community. And so many of you guys were and are so excited about this beautiful resource that mothers in our community are going to be able to have access to. And the reason why I say I haven't been authentic is because first off, I have no clue what I'm doing. I will be honest in that it's the same with Elephant Baby. Like, God gave me a vision, and he gave me in a moment. It was almost like a calling in a moment. And I'll share that because I do feel led to kind of share my story and how we got here, and how it's not only about me, but how we got here as women who are deeply desiring to change postpartum here in our society. But yeah, I do not even when I started this business, which is thriving and we're growing, and I've had to learn a lot along the way. Like I I didn't know, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't want people to know that I don't know what I'm doing, because in my head and in my mind is that people won't want to partner with this organization if I don't have it all together, and if I don't learn it all, and if I don't know it all, and I don't have a clear strategy. I don't have everything laid out, and I know that those things are important. It's important to have a plan and a strategy. um, Being a business owner for the last few years has taught me that it's important to have a plan for growth and steps to execute. But at the same time, on the flip side, there's a learning curve, and I'm not meant to have it all together or to know it all or to do it all. And sometimes I feel that I have to do that as the leader, owner, and founder of these organizations, and being and executing the vision of the Eternal Postpartum Movement. And so oftentimes it puts me in freeze mode, because I have never led a nonprofit before. I am still very new in owning and running a business, and a business that has been growing and has been successful. But still, I often have doubts that creep up in my mind that prevent me from stepping into fully what I feel like the Most High God. And you guys are going to hear me mention God over and over again, because He's an integral part of my life, and I believe that He is truly wanting to do something big in and through us in our community here in St. Louis. And so I'm not going to apologize for that. Um, I've talked about this before. So again, if you're new here, jumping in, all are welcome. I am not going to isolate or say that you can't be a part of this. And I've always said that. All of my contractors here at Elephant Baby know that, we don't have to think alike, believe the same things. We are empowered to make our own choices in just about what we believe. But that's something that I am not shying away from. And so just want to clarify that. But yeah, I often feel that I am inhibiting what the Father truly wants to do here in our community through what we're doing through the Eternal Postpartum Movement. And so I feel that it's necessary to take the time to apologize to all of our followers, especially those who have subscribed to receive updates of the well. And I'm going to be very vulnerable here. Because I have no clue what I'm doing, I am often like trying to figure out what everybody else does in order to move ahead with what we're doing here at Elephant Baby and what we're doing here with the nonprofit. I took that approach when I started Elephant Baby, kind of learning, how do I do this? I have no clue. I just got this vision. I'm a visionary. Like, how do I put all the pieces together? And so when I announced the well, I didn't even have any sort of subscriber email list set up, because that's how I am. I'm a visionary. I'm going to get the word out. Like, I'm excited about this. I am a spur of the moment. Like, I just live in the moment almost when it comes to these big dreams and big visions, and when it's time to go. Even though I don't have all of the details laid out, when I know it's time to go, then I'm going, and I'm going to share with those who are, I'm going to share, so that's kind of, I didn't have an email list set up or anything like that. And I just got an overwhelming response of excitement. At this point, I can't tell you how many comments and how many likes are on the pin post of my Facebook page, but you guys are excited about this. And so someone gave me some advice, hey, create an email list so that they can stay updated, and we can give updates about the well. And I'm like, sure, okay. But what do I put in the email list? And, what do I put in the emails that I'm sending out? And so I asked ChatGPT to help me create like a sequence to send out to our subscribers. And this is where I feel like I have to apologize, because that is a part of like not showing up as my authentic self. That is a part of copying and doing what other people do, or what other organizations who are successful might do. And I think those of you guys who have known me for so long know that I've always just tried to show up authentically in this journey that we call life, through every struggle that I experienced. Some of you guys pre-Elephant Baby, before I even started Elephant Baby, when you were connected with me on social, you guys got to know me. I shared vulnerably, openly, and authentically regarding issues that I was experiencing in my marriage. I shared openly the things that I experienced in my motherhood journey, the feelings of like hating being a mother and hating not being able to show up for my kids. And, you guys have been with me through this journey, and it's always been my goal to show up with transparency because I feel like when we do that, then it opens up a space for ministry. Not saying that I feel called to help every single person, but I remember feeling very lonely in some of the darkest moments of my life and feeling like I was very alone and that nobody else was experiencing what I was experiencing. I would go to church and people would say, we would have conversations about how are you doing? And it would just be so surface level. And I would literally go home and just like bawl my eyes out because nobody was experiencing the weight of marriage like I was experiencing it. Nobody was experiencing the weight of motherhood. Like nobody, like I had made up in my mind that this was the case. And so from that, there was a certain point in time where I feel like El Shaddai, our eternal creator, my heavenly father, he just like prompted on my heart and pushed on my heart, like, Kyla, just start showing up and being authentic. Like, start sharing with people what you're going through, help them know that they're not alone. And it's always been my heart to do that and to encourage other women in the things that they may be wrestling with. And so I forgot where I was going with this, but I say all that to say that you guys, I want to do this differently. I don't want it to be the cookie cutter of like what everybody else is doing. I want to showcase that what we're doing here with the Eternal Postpartum Movement is different. And the reason that I know that is different is not only because of, what we're bringing to our community. We're bringing a renewal retreat that supports mothers not only immediately postpartum, but through the infinite chapters of postpartum. In that retreat, we're highly, highly, highly going to be focused on community, and we're going to fellowship, we're going to gather, we're going to eat. I truly have this vision where women can come and they can pour out their hearts and their souls, and they can be waited on, hand and foot. They can be served, they can be nourished, they can be encouraged, like challenged. We can grow, we can learn, like, and the difference is that not only is this for mothers who at any stage postpartum, but it's also going to be for mothers who cannot easily access support like this. When I've done my research and I've looked around at other postpartum retreats, and the price tag on those retreats is $800 to $1,200 a night. And let's be honest, like I can't afford that for my family. And so I believe that mothers should be able to easily access this care, that it should be easily accessible. And I want to we're 15 minutes in, and I want to take a moment to just share my story with you guys because you may not know. And as I was sharing with other women over this retreat, it reminded me of like how I got here. It reminded me of why the Eternal Postpartum Movement was birthed. It reminded me of like like our purpose for the well. And I just don't feel like any sort of email communications will ever bring to life and bring to vision what we're working to do here. And so I just want to apologize again for not being authentic. I don't want to be cookie cutter. This is different. Like what we're doing here is different. And another thing that I know is what we're doing here is truly ministry. You guys know that, well, maybe you don't. Again, we're not going to assume, but I believe that the heart of God I believe that he's so grieved with so many of our churches here. Maybe you guys have a very similar experience to me where you grew up in the church and maybe you're coming out of that system. You're coming out of the religious systems. You're looking and you're seeing that what I believe about the Bible, like most of the churches don't reflect what the Bible says. And again, maybe you don't even adhere to the Bible, but again, I'm just speaking I'm just speaking authentically and what I feel that God is pressing on my heart. But I believe that his heart is so grieved because we are so caught up in systems of religion, and it's suppressing and it's oppressing not only the church body, but also those outside of the church that we are called to elevate. See, the thing I know about the Most High God, the thing I know about the God of Abraham, the reason why I keep saying Most High God is because I want to be clear of who I serve. But the thing about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the thing about the God that I call Abba Father, who I have seen his hand in my life so clearly, is his heart is for those who, his heart has always been for those who are marginalized in our society, those who are in need, those who are in lower socioeconomic communities that our society says, well, they can't access this support and this care and this love. Like, well, it makes it more difficult for them to access the basic needs. And you see, the heart of the Father is at the church. Care for the orphan, care for those in need, care and love on the widow. Like, that has been his heart, like, from the very beginning. And what I've noticed is that our churches do not reflect the heart of the God that we say that we serve. And I feel this grief that he is feeling. When I started praying, Father, break my heart for what breaks yours, he began to show me it's his church that he is grieved with, the hypocrisy in his church, the greed in his church, the oppression in his church, the fact that his church doesn't even align, like, we don't even align ourselves with the things that we say that we believe about the Bible. And so as time goes on, as months go by, I'm starting to have clarity on what the well is supposed to be, what it's supposed to look like. When I think ministry, when I think full-time ministry, my mind automatically goes to church or being a missionary or what I've been indoctrinated to believe. But the thing about it is, what we are doing here at Elephant Baby, what you guys are doing as doulas, midwives, as maternal care providers, you guys are providing a ministry to mothers that, oh my goodness, it's so needed. You're impacting the lives of mothers in such an intricate and profound way. And so I've been given clarity on what the well and what we're bringing forth in the community, that it is truly a ministry that, often people are seeking and searching. They're looking for hope. The hopeless are looking for hope. The depressed are looking to find joy. And what I do know is that the well will be placed as a city on a hill in our community, in a world that feels dark, in a world that is filled with fear, in a world where it feels like there's no hope. I mean, and the encouragement is all I want to do is reflect the heart of my Father. All I want to do is reflect the kingdom of the Most High God and what we're doing at the well. And so I want to just take a moment to share with you guys. Again, I've connected with you guys recently. A lot of you guys I've connected with recently. You heard about the well, and you got all of these chat GPT structured emails, and it's just no more. So those of you guys who have recently subscribed, again, it's November 14th, 2025. Those of you guys who have recently subscribed, you're going to be unsubscribed from that email sequence. And any new subscribers will no longer be emailed to that sequence. Because I just know that I can't try to do things like how others are doing. And I just am so excited to just give all praise to the Most High for what he's working already in this community, and what he in and through us, wants to do to elevate mothers in our community here in St. Louis. And it's going to happen with speed. It's not going to be like any other nonprofit. Like, I know this. Like, we are in the beginning stages of planning, and the well will be here by 2025. Like I have that faith. I know that it's why I'm being called to just do things with speed, and I'm aligning myself with that. But the reason why we have started this movement and where it started, let's go there. So 12 years ago, actually, because my oldest is 11, I started my motherhood journey. It was about a year after I got pregnant, the year of our anniversary, on our first year anniversary, the weekend I found out I was pregnant, was the weekend of our first year anniversary. I just jumbled that, so I hope y'all still following along. But my first pregnancy was smooth. My first postpartum was smooth. It was so smooth that I was running miles within weeks of having my baby. And, I look back now, and obviously those of you guys who know what I teach, I was very ignorant of, the recovery that's needed during the postpartum time. And so just imagine, I'm running miles, I'm eating all the things that I think are healthy, a bunch of salads and smoothies. And unbeknownst to me, these things were actually hindering my postpartum body. And I may share a little bit about that later, but you guys know what I practice and preach all the time, like postpartum. Our bodies are so different. They change drastically. And if we don't understand physiologically what is happening with our bodies and implement protocols nutritionally and implement protocols of rest that align with what is happening physiologically, then we set ourselves up for long-term health issues. And that is what I experienced. So fast forward 6 months after I had my first, I found out I was pregnant with my second. And we did not plan to have my second that quickly. And I would say that that was the first bout of depression that I experienced. I was really like not ready to have another child. And, because I earned a degree in psychology, I understood what I was going through. And I remember that it was very difficult for my husband Chuck to like help me during that time. Like he didn't know how to come alongside me and help me through that depression. And so that was like the onset of what the world would deem as like mental health issues for me. And I wrestled with depression for over 9 years before overcoming. And those seasons, so it wasn't just like I was depressed all the time for 9 years. It was more so I would have seasons of depression. Um, Depression would look differently for me in every season. In some seasons, it would look like the inability to do everyday tasks. And some seasons I experienced postpartum rage. And I remember there was a long period of my life where I'm dealing with my little ones. So I had 5 children, and they were very close in age. At one point in time, I had 5 kids, 6 and under. So that gives you guys a good idea. And again, speaking into the fact that my body didn't have the time to recover and replenish in between pregnancies. And so I didn't know. I didn't know what my body needed until I entered the field as a postpartum doula. And so I struggled with depression off and on for over 9 years. And again, it looked differently. Sometimes, again, I would go through these cycles of rage where, I would try so hard and I would start the day like being so intentional about showing up as the best mother that I could be, showing up as the loving mother, the patient mother, the nurturing mom. But I was so disconnected with my children. And as hard as I tried mentally, by the time it hit the end of the night, I was flying off the handle at my kids. Many of you guys know my husband is a firefighter. So when he stepped into this field, it meant a lot of sacrifice for our family. It meant that he was and is now still away from our home for 48-hour periods, sometimes longer. And so I found myself feeling very alone, and especially when I hate when Chuck's gone because he brings such a grounding to our home and he loves us so well. But like in the times where he was away at the firehouse, I would really, really struggle. Like I would try so hard. And I remember just at the end of the night, like just going off, like flying off the handle, yelling at my kids, like being so tired, being so burnt out, being so exhausted. And then they would finally go to sleep and I would feel like a wave of guilt. Like I hated myself as a mother. Like I deeply desired to be, the mother that I believe that God wants me to be. But I was so disconnected from that desire and reality. And that was a cycle, the cycle of let me try my best and then failing miserably and then being consumed with the guilt of failing. And eventually I started to begin to have a lot of suicidal ideations, a lot of suicidal thoughts. Mine were very subtle. I would be driving and, just wonder what I would play out in my head, what life would look like if I ran into a tree and if I died, and what my kids would experience after that. And I would play out these scenarios where I would just drive off the road, or, I would play out these scenarios of what it would look like if I were gone. And I had convinced myself that my kids would be so much better without me. That they deserved so much better, that they deserved a mom who could show up emotionally connected, who could show up with patience, love, care, kindness. And I felt so far from that, no matter how hard I tried. And it just led into a deeper, deeper, deeper season of hopelessness and depression and just feeling like, what's wrong with me? Like, I want to change so badly and I can't come out of this. And I remember after I had my fourth, I was sitting there one day and I was just, he was a newborn, and I just was thinking, like, it would be so amazing if I could just like rest and bond with my new baby and just focus on my kids. And I found myself surrounded with all of the things, the responsibility load of taking care of the house, making meals for the kids. And that in that moment I felt called. I felt a calling. I felt called to support mothers in a way that, I wasn't being supported. I felt called. I felt this deep fire in my belly, like no mother should ever have to experience this. And I felt the calling to rise and just to serve and be that support for women, and to give mothers everything that I did not have in my motherhood journey. And so that is probably around the same time that I announced that I was going to be starting Elephant Baby. And everybody always asked me about the name. And I knew that that was going to be the name because I had read a story one day where I had read a story about how, like, when an elephant calf, an elephant baby is born, like, there's this triumphal ceremony that happens when they're in the wild, and the baby is surrounded by female relatives, and the female relatives surround the mama, and it's like they get on their hind legs, and elephants are big, so I'm like picturing this in my head, but they get on their hind legs, and it's this triumphal moment, but it's also a moment to predators in a wild to let them know, like, hey, do not mess with us. Elephants are so strong. And so I just love the idea of the female relatives surrounding this mama and this baby, this elephant baby. And I was like, man, like, so many mothers need that. We have been stripped of so much in our society, and so many of us as mothers are struggling because we are not surrounded. We don't have the relatives anymore to surround us. We don't have community to walk alongside us and to ensure that we stay protected during the most vulnerable time of the perinatal journey, the postpartum time. And so that's where Elephant Baby came from. I'm like, I want to bring that to mothers in our community. I want to bring that village again. I want to walk alongside mom and baby so that she can thrive during this time. And so, yeah, it was around that time in 2018 where I kind of announced Elephant Baby to the world. And like, at the time I hadn't even heard of a doula, let alone a postpartum doula. And some friends told me that, hey, Kyla, oh, you want to be a postpartum doula? And it's like, oh, I don't even know what that is. So I just started Googling, like, what is a postpartum doula? And in 2019, about a week before I gave birth to my fifth, I completed my full spectrum doula training. And even in the training, I knew, like, this is so like, what I desire goes way beyond like the scope of a postpartum doula. I knew that I had in mind that I wanted to create a community and a collective where mothers could essentially receive support in a one-stop shop for postpartum care. And so I knew that I did it in the order of things that I thought was reasonable. So I became a doula at first. And fast forward 6 months, we transitioned into agency model, and we brought on our first amazing contractors, our most amazing doulas and lactation consultants. Many of them are still with us today here, serving our community here in St. Louis. And so shout out to you guys if y'all are listening. I have so much love for these ladies, and I love this environment that we've created for providers here at Elephant Baby. I love you guys so much. But yeah, so we fast forwarded into agency model, and we've been here for a few years. It's been about 3 years, I believe now. So I just completed my training, and again, about a week later is when I had my fifth. And this season was probably the season where I experienced the deepest bout of depression that I had ever experienced. And it started when I birthed at home. And we ended up transferring to the hospital. And as soon as the medics told me what hospital we were going to, like, I just knew, like, my mind automatically goes into fight mode because I know what I'm dealing with. Like, I had become familiar with you know, the I had become familiar with racial bias, and this hospital in this area is known for treating Black women unwell. And I knew that I had three strikes against me. I knew that I had, just given birth at home. I knew that I was Black, and I was prepared to advocate for myself. Like, I knew what I was walking into. And when I got to the hospital, I just remember, I remember that the staff was so cold. They were so rude. I did have this one older nurse who was my saving grace, and had it not been for her, I mean, I just don't know what would have happened. But we get to the hospital, and the concerns that we had were that I may be hemorrhaging. But by the time we had gotten to the hospital, I had delivered my placenta, and I had already began to feel my uterus contracting. I had began breastfeeding. And so those concerns had began to dwindle. And I remember just entering into the hospital, wanting to be in a quote unquote safe space. And it was the most unsafe that I had ever felt in my life. The nurses began to badger me about what we were doing with my baby. They wanted to give my baby a bath, and they wanted to minister all of this stuff. And I just politely declined. And as I declined one thing after another, I could see the visible frustration. I could see how annoyed they were with me. And I could see that they were really upset about making that choice to delay my baby's bath. And it's so interesting to look back on. I immediately knew that I did not want to stay at the hospital. But the doctor came in, and she started to examine me, and she noticed that pieces of my placenta were still in my uterus. And so she let me know that she was going to have to get those out. And so she left for a little bit, and then she came back in. She didn't even introduce herself. Again, the staff was extremely cold towards me. And then she just, without any warning, begins to scrape my insides with this metal tool to remove the remaining pieces of my placenta. And it was the most excruciating pain that I have ever felt. And so you could hear screams through me gritting my teeth. I looked over at my husband. I saw him looking at me, and I knew that he wanted to be right next to my side, just holding me. But at that point, we didn't feel comfortable leaving the baby with the staff, because they were already so frustrated that we had decided to delay her bath and to decline any sort of vaccinations, or we weren't trying to do anything with her there at the hospital. And we were afraid, we just did not trust the staff at all. And so all he did was look at me, and I looked at him, and there was this mutual understanding that he was to remain with the baby, and that I would be okay. But it was one of the worst experiences that I've ever felt in my life. I never experienced medical abuse, and what I experienced was medical abuse. I knew that I was being racially profiled, but I didn't have clarity on that fully until I was finally discharged from the hospital after, fighting to leave. They kept telling me that, I could go, but they would have to keep my baby. And there was no way that I was entrusting them to have my baby and me not be there the entire time. There was just no way. And I kept just speaking up and saying, why are you guys so focused on her staying here when she was not even admitted? I was the one who was admitted. And the thing about it is, a few weeks leading up to my experience in the hospital, I had actually supported a mom who, through this organization, which is a really great organization that advocates for moms who decide to keep their babies after making an initial decision to adopt. And so I had just stepped into the role a few weeks prior of advocating for this mom who had just, decided to keep her baby, and somebody had hotlined her, and she was now at risk of having her baby taken away. And so there was already this sensitivity and awareness of medical kidnapping that goes on in our country that many people don't know about. And so it just made me that more uncomfortable to leave the hospital without my baby. And so after hours of literally pleading, fighting, begging to leave the hospital, we eventually got discharged. And my husband had just finished up fire academy at the time, and he had to go in and take his state tests. I think it was literally the day that we got home from the hospital. he couldn't reschedule them. And so I found myself alone with my baby and our 4 children. And it was a strange season for us because in times past, we had family surrounding us and kind of supporting us, especially those initial days. But there were things happening on both sides of our family, things happening with my family that made them unavailable. Things happen with, things going on with my husband's family that made them less available. And so I had began to enter into this deep season of depression, wondering and convincing myself that people didn't love me and wondering why nobody was showing up. And not too long after that, CPS came knocking on our door, and they had said that they received a call from the hospital with concerns that we had delayed our baby's bath. And the crazy thing about this is that delayed bath is becoming such a common practice because people are learning the benefits of, keeping that vernix, that white cheesy stuff on the baby, so that it just brings about so many benefits. And so I just knew at that time, like, that I was being racially profiled, and that, at the end of the day, I was terrified that I was going to lose my kids, that they were going to take my baby. And for weeks, like, there was like a mental torment of, like, my babies are going to be taken away from me. And so the situation that I experienced in my 5th postpartum journey literally was the perfect cocktail and the perfect setup for the deepest, like I said, this was the deepest season of depression that I have ever experienced. And, God is so good, because even in the depth of darkness, even in the depth of what I experienced, I can see so clearly that his hand pulled me out. And after years of like crying to him, like, why wouldn't he take the depression? Like, I believe, that you're a healer. I believe that you can do all of these things. And I'm like praying and pleading to God, like, why won't you take this depression away? And it was in that season where he began to really show me his hand. And he began to show me that, there are some things that I want you to learn first, Kyla. And that is when I went down the journey of study. And I don't know how I had the mental capacity. I believe that it was because of the grace of the Most High God, because I don't know how I had the mental capacity to read books and to study articles and to research. How do I overcome this without taking a pharmaceutical drug? Because I was terrified to take any sort of script. I knew the level of dependency it could cause. I knew what would happen if I took it. And, I knew the potential to experience withdrawal symptoms. I knew the potential to experience even worse side effects than what the depression in and of itself brought on. And so I was too terrified to take a script. And I just was like pleading that God would just help me out of it. And I thought it would be like an instant moment of healing. And I was praying for that. And I learned, and he showed me so clearly, no, I need you to learn how to steward your body. I need you to learn, physiologically what is going on. And now I look back and I know that it was for the very reason of supporting and equipping mothers to be able to do the same and walk through the same journey of healing that I did. And so he taught me those nutritional protocols to implement. I learned a lot of that, again, through research and just understanding how God created my body as a woman. And then it was about a year ago where I realized that I was wrestling with a stronghold of depression, because even in feeling the best that I had ever felt as a mother, even feeling so full in vitality, I remember specifically having a realization that there's a stronghold over me. Because anytime Chuck would ask me, we would talk about, getting the kids into something new, into sports or starting something new. And, I always had this fear, and I would always express to him, I love the idea of that, but I don't want to slip back into depression. And that is when God revealed to me that I was wrestling with a stronghold over in my life. And he gave me the understanding and the revelation of how, truly how the physical, the mental, emotional, and the spiritual all interconnect. And that I was dealing with something spiritual still. Even in feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally well, there was still a spiritual wrestling going on. And he showed me that you have the authority to tell the spirit of depression to flee, because you are my child. I sacrificed my son so that you can walk in this freedom. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but we wrestle against powers and principalities. And I remember vividly him teaching me, you're wrestling against the powers and principalities, but you can walk and stand in authority. And so this is essentially, again, what brought the Eternal Postpartum Movement to life. And so now we have the well, the vision of the well. And it's the vision that I've had all along, a brick and mortar space that reflects what we're already doing here at Elephant Baby, which is providing support to mothers in a very comprehensive way to ensure that they thrive and that they're creating lifelong habits of wellness. And here we are today, and we've spearheaded this radical movement in which we're not only desiring to partner with providers here locally in St. Louis, but we want to spread this movement all across the nation. And we want to teach our society that we have to redefine postpartum. So many mothers struggle well beyond the first year postpartum. So many mothers experience issues that we have deemed to be normal they're not normal, you guys. They're common, but they're not normal. Being diagnosed with an autoimmune issue within your first year postpartum it's a direct link to your childbirth experience and that depletion that so many mothers face, that I faced because I didn't know any better. I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to be running. I didn't know that I was supposed to be eating differently. And the reason why it's so necessary for us to redefine postpartum is because so many of you are struggling and you had your baby 5, 10, maybe even 15 years ago, and you've never felt the same. You're struggling in the same way that I did. Bone gnawing exhaustion. I'm talking, you don't even want to plant your feet on the floor to get out of bed because your task list, your to-do list, it's exhausting. It's draining you. You're barely showing up. And you have a deep desire to show up for your children and be the mom that the Most High created you to be. You have that desire, but you're like I am. And there's a disconnect because the reality and the desire, there's something disconnecting there. And you just don't feel the same since having children, since becoming a mother. You're struggling to show up in your home and be the mother that you deeply desire to be. And even more than that, you can't even think and fathom what it would look like to walk in your calling outside of motherhood because you're so exhausted with just doing what you're doing now. You know that you have a higher calling to serve. Maybe it's to serve other women, or I don't know what that looks like. But for me, like I knew that I had a calling outside. Well, I don't want to say higher calling because motherhood is not a low calling. Let's just be honest. But I knew I had an additional calling outside of motherhood to serve mothers in our community, to build mothers in the church. Like I knew that. And I'm recognizing so very clearly that we are anointed for where we are called. Some people say like, oh, well, you just had this desire because of what you went through. No, everything that I went through anointed me for where I was called to be and where I was called to serve. What the Most High, the calling that He had on my life was to serve, support, empower, minister to mothers. And it became very clear to me that my anointing is in this area because every deep attack that I have felt in my life has been related to my motherhood journey. Earlier this year, I experienced a miscarriage. I had 5 healthy pregnancies before ever experiencing a miscarriage. The thing about it is we are going to be anointed and we're going to be pressed, and that oil is going to come out with where we are called to be. And I didn't recognize it for a while, and I didn't lean into this as, it didn't align to me that this is more spiritual than what I thought, coming into this field and this work. But that's something that has been so clear to me. But again, we have to emphasize the need to redefine, postpartum and acknowledging the fact that mothers need to be supported through the infinite chapters of postpartum. Mothers in our society, especially. Other societies have systems of support that are beautifully woven within their community, and we don't have that. And I feel the heart of the Father he just presses on my mind daily, like, get back to how I wanted it to be. Get back to the design that I had for humans when I created you. And that leads into the next pillar of our focus here with what we're doing at the Eternal Postpartum Movement. I don't know if you guys are still hanging in with me because it's been 41 minutes, but I'm going to try to wrap it up. But the next pillar really centers around holistic empowerment. And it is acknowledging the fact that we have an eternal creator who has designed our bodies as women. I don't believe, there's nothing within me that believes that our bodies were not intricately designed and that there was not intention with how our bodies were created. And the fact is we've been, first off, we're not even taught like about our bodies as women, let alone during the postpartum time. We're not taught that our digestive system changes and that our diet needs to shift and that salads and smoothies are not the best because of all of the changes that are happening with the digestive system. We're not taught of all the hormones and, what's going on with each specific hormone during the postpartum time and why some levels are dropping and some levels are raising. And we're not told that if our CRH if we don't take the steps to try to replenish that, then it plummets and it stays low, and that affects our cortisol. And our cortisol, impacts our ability to manage stress. And it's no wonder why we're in fight or flight for years after we've had a baby. It's no wonder why we can barely manage the small stressors of the day. Like, all of this matters. And when we learn about how the Most High God designed our bodies as women, and when we begin to implement protocols that reflect what that looks like, then we begin to thrive and create true habits of lifelong wellness. Then we begin to replenish and reclaim our health in a very deep way in every single aspect: physical, mental, spiritually, emotionally. I'm done with the rhetoric that says that we need a professional to guide us in the basic things about our health when it comes to balancing our hormones. There's sometimes those experts are needed, but sometimes it's a matter of empowering ourselves with the education to know. And that's what I've been doing the last few years. And that's when the Father told me, God said, I didn't give you all this information just so that you can overcome depression. Like, you're now supposed to do this and be this and teach this to women so that they can thrive just like you are thriving in your health after 9 years of struggling. And so that leads into our next pillar, which is collective action. Being the village, not only for the mothers that we serve, but as providers, we need that village as well. Some of you guys are struggling in your own health and you're struggling to have balance. Like, we thrive when we walk in community. There has to be collective action. We cannot do this alone. Kyla can't do this by herself. I don't want to be surrounded by people who look like me, think like me, have had the same experiences that I have. No. You've gone through what you've gone through because you're called for a certain group of people. You have an understanding that maybe I don't have. And if we are going to support every mother through the Eternal Postpartum Movement, then we need all hands on deck. And that leads to the last pillar, which is truly being a catalyst for change, believing that we can change our society. We don't have to rely on policies and the government to do the things that we're being called to do, to be the hands and feet of the Most High God, to reflect his heart, where he says, care for those in need, care for those who are struggling, care for the poor, care for the needy, care for the marginalized. We can create systems within our practices as maternal care providers to create true, impactful change, to reach more women, to attract those that we are called to attract and serve. I'm tired of this rhetoric in this field that we have to water ourselves down and serve everybody. Like, while I do believe that it is important to have a skill set to walk into the home of a family who may not think or look or act, your values don't align. It's so important that we don't allow our own values to hinder the support that we bring to families who don't necessarily align with us. That is a skill set that everyone working in this field should have. But I also think that it creates burnout when we aren't stepping in and serving those who we are called to serve. Because the truth of the matter is, you have a knowledge, you have an expertise, you have an experience that you're meant to share with a specific person, a specific group of people, those who are going to eat up everything that you have to say, and it's not going to feel energy draining because it's not getting through the head of those who there's just some people we are called to serve. And that's where we bring life and vitality into the work that we are doing. When we come in alignment with those who we are called to serve, those who we are called. Did I say that right? And so this is the Eternal Postpartum Movement. This is The Well is an initiative of the postpartum movement. We desire to see, again, everything that we've been doing in Elephant Baby for the last few years is going to be reflected in The Well. And then so much more. The Well is a space where a mother can enter, whether she's had a baby, within the last week, within the last few months, or whether she had her baby 5 years ago and she's completely burned out and she's stressed and she's hanging on by a thread and she needs a place to reset. The Well is for mothers who need to be supported. So imagine a place, or maybe you're a mother listening, imagine a place where you can go to retreat and reset and have somebody love on you, preparing you nutrient-dense meals that help you to replenish all that was lost during pregnancy, during those initial weeks postpartum. Imagine a place where you can gather with like-minded women and women who maybe don't even think like you, but we are all in unity over the thought and over the notion that mothers, we deserve to be supported, and we are the pillars of our homes. We're the foundations of our community. So imagine just being able to be in a space where you can share your story and feel validated, where you can learn, where you can grow, where you can rest. Imagine a space as providers where you can experience some of the same things. You can be surrounded by women who are propelling you in your calling, who are encouraging your growth, who are supporting you. The Well will feature tiny homes that mothers can come and retreat in. It'll feature a community garden where we can pull fresh herbs and vegetables and fruits to prepare for those who have checked in to receive that support. The Well is a community space, and I'm so excited about this because I have personally just felt alone in my spiritual journey. And so being able to have a space where we can get back to the ways of the Most High God and what He desired for us. The very first thing He taught us, the very first thing that we read in the Word is how He created the world. And then He showed us the example of rest. And how many of us as women feel like we don't ever get that rest? We can never enter that rest. Can you imagine the thought that He commanded His people to rest? He said the Sabbath, 6 days shall you work, on the seventh day you shall rest. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. I think I got that right. But the more I learn about God, the more that I dive into the Word, I just am able to see the love that He had for me as His daughter. Like, the fact that some people would say that that's so legalistic. Oh my gosh, like, you have to keep Sabbath. You have to, like, we don't have to do anything, first of all. But when we understand the heart of the Most High God and what He intended for His people, the more I dig into that and dive into that, I just see the beauty of His heart to love me, His heart to protect me. And I think wrestling with 9 years of depression has helped me to see this. Like, when I follow the protocols that He laid out, when I take that time to rest and to honor the Sabbath and to enter into His presence and to truly do no work, like how much that benefits my health in every level. When I take the time to pay attention to how we design our bodies and eat in the way that He told His people to eat, I mean, this aligns with true vitality. This aligns with lifelong wellness. And so I'm excited to teach more on that at the Well. I'm excited to gather together with women on Sabbath and have Sabbath day gatherings where we fellowship, where we laugh, where we disconnect, where we rest, where we dig into the Word. I'm excited to commemorate His appointed times with those who are wanting to participate in things like the Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of Trumpets. Like, I think we just so deeply desire that community, that fellowship, and just having a good time. And imagine that God said, these are my appointed times, and I'm commanding you to do this. I'm commanding you to feast. I'm commanding you to fellowship, and I'm commanding you to remember me. Like, it's just a beautiful thing. And this is the first year that my family has gotten really to participate in those things fully. And so I want to share that with other women who desire that. But we'll have a lot of community events outside of that. And the goal is just to encourage and foster a collective rise of women so that we can do what we're called to do inside of motherhood and also what we're called to do outside of motherhood. And we're coming up on almost an hour. So I thank you guys for just taking the time to hear my heart. Again, I deeply apologize, and I promise to do my very best to walk authentically in what God is calling me to do and in through this initiative of bringing the well to our community through the initiative of the Eternal Postpartum Movement. Promise that I will do the very best I can to just showcase who He is in all of this and not be cookie cutter in the way that I am, going about raising funds and things of that sort. And so I do want to take the time to invite you to be a part of this because we do need you. I can't do this alone. We need you. And the fact of the matter is that we need funding. Like, we need funding for the well. And I hate asking for money. And maybe you felt the cringiness through the emails because, it's cringy for me. But we need you to be a part of this movement. And so what I would love to invite you into is just to take time to think, take time to pray about what you can commit to for the next year. To choose an amount, to feel comfortable with an amount that you can give to bringing the initiative of the well to our community by 2025. I want you to really just think about it. I don't have any sort of pledge cards made up. I don't have anything set up online. But what I would want you to do is I'm going to be sending this out in an email. It's also going to be posted as a podcast episode. So if you're listening on the podcast, then I just want you to reach out to me. I manage the account support@elephant-baby.com. Or if you're getting this email, simply hit reply to the email. And once you've had time, or maybe you've been thinking as I've been talking of how you want to be involved in giving to this campaign for us to bring the well into our community, I want you to email me and just let me know just make your pledge today. It could be a $50 pledge. It could be a $25 pledge for the year. It could be $1,000, whatever you feel led and whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm inviting you, and we need you in order to make this happen, in order to make an impact in the lives of mothers in our community. And I honestly think that this is going to go beyond community in St. Louis. I believe that people are going to begin traveling to the city on a hill. I'm going to keep referring to the well as a city on a hill. I think people are going to begin traveling to the well. I think we're going to have the opportunity to impact and change the lives of so many women. I think so many women are going to move into alignment. Am I saying that right? Yes. Move into alignment of how God created them to be. I believe that so many women have been torn down with the lies that, quite frankly, come from the enemy, that they're hindering them from their purpose in motherhood and their purpose outside of motherhood. And I believe a lot of women are going to experience freedom. I believe a lot of women are going to experience restoration, healing, growth, and even more than that. Above all, I believe that this movement is truly going to showcase the Most High God and what He desires for His creation, what He desires on this earth. I believe that this movement is going to be so powerful, and I want you to be a part of it. And so, whether it's committing to a $50 pledge, I want to ask you, what can you give by next year? How much can you give by next year? Whether it be 50, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 25,000, I'm inviting you into this movement to be a part of the change. The next thing I want to ask is that you would share this video with someone who you think would want to be a part of this movement, because we need all hands on deck. I cannot do this alone. And we need you. I need your money and your resources. And I hate saying that, but it is what it is. All right, you guys. Again, it's been almost an hour, and thanks for hanging in there with me. I'm really excited about what we're doing here with the Elephant Baby Foundation and with Elephant Baby. I'm so excited to just have the opportunity and humility to lead this movement in supporting providers and mothers and reclaiming wellness and collectivism throughout the infinite chapters of postpartum based on biblical principles. And I know it's been a while since you guys have had a podcast episode. There's definitely more to come. So I'll see you on the next episode.